presentation and maybe introduce yourself together with the panelists.
Thank you. This is Victor Boge. I'll be taking you through the first session of the ergonomics. This is session 1. We have 3 series. I have 2 and 3. With me, I have panelists. You have Emily Kosgei, you have Gerald, you have Peter, Haraka, and Wycliffe Tatayo. Emily, can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session.
Thank you. Wycliffe?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session. Today's session, as you've been told, my name is Wycliffe Tatayo Yadi. I'm one of the panelists.
Okay. Peter? Okay, I think you can start, Victor, and then we can do the question and answer session after your presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So welcome all. This is KNH Physiotherapy Ergonomics Training Session 1. So in early 1700, Ramazini tried to study the effects of poor posture and poorly designed tools on the health of workers. Therefore, the Greek came up with the word ergon, which means work, and nomics, which means law. Ergonomics simply the study of work laws. The modern definition includes the science of fitting workplace condition and job demands to the capability of the working population. As I have said, ergon works and norms, which also means law, simply is the science of improving employees' performance and well-being in relation to the job task being given, the equipment being used, and the environment surrounding the employees. So simply you can say that ergonomics is fitting the job to the person. So the science of designing the job to fit. So but not physically forcing the worker's body to fit the job. Ergonomics has some components: the workstation, which include the worker, the work job, the work, and the workplace. The worker includes the employees, the workplace, that's the environment in which the worker works, the work, which includes the tools or equipment or the procedure being done. A well-designed job considers the worker's mental, physiological, and physical characteristics, as well as health and safety condition at the workstation. So ergonomics can be applied in several areas that include the study, research, and experimentations, application, and engineering also. That involves the designing of tools, machines, shelters, work stacks, job procedure to fit and accommodate the human beings. In other fields like medical, anatomy, orthopedic, physiology, psychology, sociology, can also be applied. Industrial engineering, safety engineering, military engineering, and computer-aided design. We have also anthropometry, biomechanics, the work physiology, industrial hygiene, management. All these should also consider the people with disability during the design of the program. So we come to our topic, anthropometry, which this involves the science of measurement of physical aspect of the human body. This includes the size, the shape, and the body composition. Each adult individual has different characteristics of the size, shape, and the body dimension. So factors that can affect the anthropometry include the sex of the individual, the age, different age can vary, ethnicity, that includes the race and the tribe of different individual, the lifestyle in which a person lives, the body, physical challenges, that include the person living with disabilities. So anthropometry can be used for statistical data obtained about the distribution of the population, that includes the tools, equipments, the workstation, which I said about the work, the job, and the workplace, can be designed in such a way as to ensure the maximum comfort, safety, and efficiency for individual. The normal distribution, also anthropometry can be used for normal distribution curve in population, can also be used for designing for range, that includes smallest to the largest, designing for extremities, also the smallest to the largest, and also designing for the average. In the data, anthropometry can be used more specifically for designing footwear design, as in orthotics, protective equipment design, as in the face shield, equipment design, as in the machineries we use, especially the biomedical, machinery design also, architectural design in the structural areas of the workplace, used in criminology, that includes the skull and the fingerprints. Measurements are perfectly distinguished for each single individual. Example of measurements include the design of protective equipment for the head and face, that include like the face shield recently, measure size and shape of the face, the mustache, the hair, ears, and nose. Door design, which include the standard height, consider the tallest person in the workplace, consider the tallest person, the width, that include the passage of one person or more, considering the shoulder size of the biggest person, the size of the material handling equipment, such as the trolley bin used in the workplace. Occupational ergonomics can be used for optimizing work well-being, optimize productivity, minimize workplace stress factors, also minimize medical and worker compensation costs. Occupational factors, which include physical hazards, chemical hazard, biological hazards, and occupational hazards. So on the physical hazards, we have the heat, noises, illumination, ventilation, vibration, falling, tripping, sleeping. On the chemical hazards, this includes some things like liquids, solid, gases, fumes, mist, and fibers. Biological hazards include needle prick injuries, bloodborne pathogens, anthrax, tuberculosis, rabies, also hepatitis. Also on the work-related factors include manual handling, manufacturing and production, heavy lifting, twisting movements, long working hours in awkward position can also affect the ergonomics. So what is the goal of the ergonomics? First is to consider human attributes. This includes the mental and the physical. People doing work along with a range of other attributes, job and equipment from design to maintenance. Other goal is to improve the efficiency of human performance at work. Also to enhance productivity, also to improve usability or user friendliness, the capability to use easily, safely, and efficiently. To continue, we have the goals also to control risk. This includes any risk-based control at the source, whether considering the job, the tools, or the equipment needed to do it. The aim should be control the risk at the design stage. This reduces the likelihood of injuries and illness and discomfort while at work. Also, this will also increase the workers' morale in doing their job. What are the benefits being accompanied with ergonomics? In ergonomics, we have the lower injury rates, we have increased productivity, reduce absenteeism from work, also reduce the turnover of employees at work. To continue, we have also low cost in workers' compensation, improve worker safety, increase comfort of workers, reduce fatigue of work, also improve workers' morale during their performance at workplace. So what are the fundamentals? You have 6 basic questions one should ask him or herself. These include who are the users, those include the workers. What do workers do in the environment or the place they are being employed? How do workers perform their job? When do workers engage in specific work behavior? Where do workers engage in task? Why do workers do what they do? And that way. So the first, who are the users? Ergonomics begin by the understanding the characteristic of the population. We said about the size, the shape, and the dimension. The challenges to develop solutions that accommodate individual difference while accommodating everyone who will use the design product or environment that includes the workplace. So what do workers do? It is important to understand the activities that comprise their task and job workers perform. Task analysis. What do workers do? It is important to understand the activities that comprise the task and job workers perform. Task analysis will allow the management to understand the work behavior and functional requirement of a set of tasks or a job in the family. How do workers perform their job? Are there particular work styles or sequence of activity that characterize a specific job or group of workers? So other factors to consider in workers' performance their job. Understanding this will inform functional design specification that support work in the way it is being done in the workplace or the environment being participated by the workers. When do workers engage in specific work behavior? This should be important to support activities, work behavior that constitute the daily task. So the critical importance of the outcome requires the best support of workers performing that job function at that time. That including places like A&E, CCU, HDUs, IDUs in the workplace. Where do workers engage in task? This includes location and configuration of workplace, will help in determining how best to support the necessary work behavior and function. Each workplace type has corresponding ergonomic consideration. So a place like ICU will have different ergonomic workplace as compared to A&E workplace. So other question somebody can ask in ergonomics, why do workers do what they do and in the way they do it? Are there policies? Someone should ask him or herself, what are the guidelines he or she should follow? What are the procedures being required? Why workers perform their assigned tasks in a certain order or fashion? The routine that is coming up with the program to perform their duty. What is the handing over techniques being used? What are the first activities to be performed, especially in the wards? The peer suggestions, the superstition behavior also play a role in why work is performed in a certain way. Thank you. That was a presentation for the first session. I'm welcoming any question.
Thank you very much for the presentation. That was quite informative. Any additions from the panelists as I look through the question and answer?
Good afternoon.
Okay. Hi, this is Wycliffe.
Yeah.
Hello, are you getting me?
Yes,
Yes.
we're getting you.
Yeah. This is Wycliffe. Thank you so much, Victor, for the presentation.
Okay.
Just an addition to what you've already said. I think one of the major components of ergonomics is educate the worker in terms of body biomechanics. So as much as we want to educate them on how they adapt to the environment of their workplace in the right way, they should also be engaged in terms of how do they do the work they do in the way they do. Like if we are not having the right biomechanics, even if you have the right environment, you might still end up with work-related injuries. Otherwise, it's been a good presentation. That's just an addition. Thanks.
Thank you. So as I wait for other questions and answers, probably I can ask questions for myself. You mentioned something about when you're building and making the hospital, you need to factor in things like the tallest person or probably even the widest person. So just quick one, because most of the buildings we work in, especially in the public sectors, were built way before time. Has there ever been a time that these considerations were taken and readjustments made? Because I know a couple of people who hit their head when they're walking through a door.
Thank you, Dr. And that has been the biggest challenge because you find that the structural engineers, they're the ones who give us, and that's why you see in the title of Anthropometry, we were talking about the measurement specifically because you find like in a building, a hospital, you find where they have to put the trolleys. They have also to consider the person with disability. That should be now the modern building. But the biggest challenge you have is most of our constructions were done long time ago, and we may not achieve much. But where there can be structural changes done and new buildings, it is good to consider that we may have the tallest person coming in, we have a wider person, even someone using a wheelchair, and we consider places like where we should include the ramps, where people cannot, you push the trolleys, the pathways should be very clear so that it can be all inclusive. But for the past, we may not improve much.
Thank you. There's a lot of echo, so I don't know how that will be able to be managed, if we can look into that. Another question is, are there people who are in charge of going around the hospital? I think basically this person wants to know if there's an OSHA in place.
Sorry, Dr.
Over
Please
to you.
come up again.
Yeah, sorry, I was asking, rather, there's somebody who's asking, are there people who are in charge of going around the hospital and checking how they can improve the workplace, such as in the KNH? I believe they're basically asking about the OSHA. I know of an OSHA committee in existence within Kenyatta that does that. There's departmental OSHA and the bigger OSHA for the hospital. However, I think what they're trying to ask is a person from ergonomics part of this committee?
Thank you for the question. Ideally, that should be, but so far, maybe one, I know of one who is part of it, but myself, I'm not. So I think that is
Yeah, I think it's a valid question. I think it's a very important question, and it shall make us think broadly, not just in Kenyatta, but in most hospitals, to incorporate physiotherapists as part of the OSHA committee, because I mean, they are the ones who know more about ergonomics.
Yes, thank you. And to add on that, Dr. If this was just an introduction, we just going to talk also about when we have poor body mechanics, like what Wycliffe has mentioned, we are going to have also injuries. And this is why it is important, as you say, for prevention purposes, get the right people for the right job. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. So are we going to have another presentation right now, or?
This was just an introduction. The next one will be a very long one because it has including demonstrations. So today we were just basically giving a nutshell for the introduction to ergonomics.
Okay. So in a nutshell, what is ergonomics? I'm sorry, I mostly caught the Greek wordings, but what in a layman perspective, what is ergonomics?
Basically, we talk of ergonomics. We talk
about the worker and the workplace. We want to fit this person to the work they are doing, and we want to prevent injuries. So it is fitting the job to the worker. Just a minute, we can ask Nani to refer to the slides a bit, Victor.
I think that's in order. While he's doing that, there's somebody who's asking, in Kenya, are healthcare workers under WIBA? WIBA?
Thank you for that question. When we talk about WIBA, Work Injuries and Benefit Act, that was the act for 2007. So this act, I think all workers should understand, because it is about compensation of the worker when they are injured. So I think it is all inclusive for all the workers, not just the industry workers, but it should be all the workers. Because I think we are all under some kind of a, there we pay money. So that is what WIBA is all about. Thank you.
Hello, Daktari.
Hello.
Hello, this is Wycliffe. Also a response to your question about a layman's understanding of what ergonomics is. Basically, in my very simple understanding, is the human capability in relation to their work environment. Like what are the capabilities of the human functional body in terms of the anatomy and of course physiology in relation to the work environment. Yeah, thanks.
Hello, Dr.
Hello?
Gerald here,
Yes, Gerald.
panelist as well. An even easier understanding or meaning of the word ergonomics is fitting the work to the worker. In most countries and in most workplaces, they work towards fitting the work environment to the worker so that you do not strain, but then you also taught how to handle yourself in case you have to. Remember when my colleague was doing a presentation, he talked about anthropometry. It's simply when you come in and look at the measurements of the people around you. For example, when they're building Kenyatta, it was built for people who built it who are from Netherlands. Definitely, these are guys who are averagely 6'2", 6'3". So you look at our doors are slightly longer, our windows are slightly bigger, okay? Our work areas are slightly higher. They don't consider the workman, the Kenyan, whose average height is about 5'8". Okay, and that's the biggest problem with if you get a building being done by another country that's back then, and they don't consider your population, their anthropometry of the particular population. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I can see there's an evolving history in ergonomics. So clearly it was not customized, and probably it was not a big priority before as it is right now, because we're looking at quality of life and quality of living and making sure that, because we spend most of our time in the work institution. So I'm just curious to know, is ergonomics part of the trainings for architects and probably engineers and stuff like that?
I believe as a module, it is. Remember now a large number moving into green buildings and ergonomic spaces. Green buildings don't do a lot about ergonomics, but they take them into account. So they'll look at, do we have a ramp for the disabled? Do we have a lift for the disabled? So it's a module in some of their trainings that they do when you're doing a building. It's a module that you have to do. And remember, I think at the moment they call it the universal measurements or universal standards, so that you must have a particular universal standard for a staircase, the width of any corridor, the particular standards that you cannot go below. Okay, and that is part of their training generally. But normally when they're doing a building, at times they may need to get a consultant to come in and tell them what are the parameters for the ergonomic, environmental, basically an OSHA panel, which will have someone who covers the ergonomic area as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's a question here. Somebody is asking, first of all, they say thank you. This links well to the 5S component of QI. You'd forgive me because I'm not very familiar with these abbreviations. There's KQMH. Are such connections made? Over to you.
Thank you. I think there is minimal connection to it.
Okay. So another question is, just give me 1 second. Thank you for the presentation by Dr. John Masasabi. Which cadre of health workers are best suited to champion ergonomics at the workplace? Any institution offering this course in Kenya? Thank you, Dr. Masasabi, for your very good question.
Thank you. Here in Kenya, we do it under occupational safety and health. That is what we've done. It is offered at the JQuat, and also KU offers it, the OSHA part of it, the OSHA training, the master's training. And for the health workers, I would only talk about KNH here. It is at the physiotherapy department. That's where we are offering the training for ergonomics.
Yeah, and I think another question that Daktari was asking, which I am in agreement, who is the best person to be the champion in this particular ergonomics, to be somebody who's advocating for it, to be in the workplaces? Who's the best placed person to do it, apart from, of course, physiotherapy?
As I said before, the best person would be the person trained under OSHA, because you see most of the questions that people are asking, and in our introduction, OSHA covers both biological hazards, physical hazards, chemical hazards, and ergonomic hazards, and now the psychological hazards at the workplace. So the person who has been trained in OSHA is all-rounded to handle this part of ergonomics.
Okay. So I believe if anybody is a member of an OSHA committee and you're not practicing ergonomics, or you're not looking at things from the perspective of ergonomics, I think it should be highly considered and it should be incorporated in the committee. I think that's the main take-home message right now.
Yes, I agree with you.
So most of the other questions are really like, I'm sorry, Merab is saying this presentation was good, but it was very fast. A lot of people are, okay, somebody is saying, I hope ergonomics can be extended to the public transport. Would you know if things like this are already happening?
Thank you for that. What I know about the public transport is companies like Isuzu, I mean General Motors, that are selling the buses of Isuzu. I know of people, a few of my classmates who are doing OSHA, they are there. They work there, so they help at the design stage. And that's what we mentioned in the presentation, that you have to apply right from the design stage, because if you have a poor design, that means the outcome will be poor.
I believe this is a very important component, because I agree with you, but I also think we're not talking enough about it, and I guess this is the best so I have to sit correctly. I have to make sure everything is in line with us doing the correct things. It's my job is fitting the job to the person, right? So yeah, I'm not getting a lot of questions today, unless now there are any comments or concerns from people. Most of them, they're just comments. You can raise your hand. I unmute you. Or the panelist, is there something in specific that you would like to say?
I think this is a good start at our level in Kenyatta. We can do it as at the webinar level where I think the numbers here are going to 500, and I hope it's beyond Kenyatta as well. So we started as a movement, then move it to at the policy level. Remember, for it to hit transport, it has to become a policy level, just like they say seatbelts must be on every vehicle, on every seat. If it doesn't become a policy thing like it is in other countries where every bus must have a slot for a wheelchair, or yes, exactly. So it's a matter of us pushing it to the policy level as physios who understand ergonomics, as doctors who understand injuries that may come out of it. Remember, some of the injuries come up very slowly. For example, a shoulder injury may come after 4 or 5 years of standing in a bus, which you have to be lifting your arm up. So with that understanding, we push it, then we may get to a level where every area, every building must have particular standards to cover the economic bit of the economic bits of the public. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. So this is just like a quick random question. I don't know if you have the statistics or not, but what are the common things that you normally see in the physiotherapy department which are work related injuries? And it can be pakada, because I'm sure we all have different, like I'm sure the nursing and different types of jobs would probably have a different type of impact, because I'm sure back pain is one of the most common things, especially in an outpatient setting. So I'm sure poor ergonomics at work play a role in that. So what do you normally see in the physiotherapy, and what are the unique things that you see from your clinical practice?
If you're looking at our staff, our KNH staff, I would say, being that the nursing staff are the largest number, it's definite that they'll also be the largest number that we'll see in physio with economic injuries, just by the fact that they're also the largest number. But we still get to see doctors, 1 or 2 physios, lab technicians, people from laundry. But as you said, in an outpatient setting, the one condition that is standard, and probably 50, 60, even more percentile of our clientele is lower back pain, and it can vary from whichever bit. And remember, lower back pain mostly comes out of ergonomic issues. Some may be due to other injuries, road accident and the likes, but a large number are due to progressive injuries that occur due to ergonomic matters. So lower back pain is quite a large bit of our population of patients. Then moving out of the lower back pain, we also get a lot of shoulder injuries. And that is people working with overhead, they have to do overhead activities. And some, even the nursing staff, who have to either lift patients or turn patients. Okay. Then going down, elbow, hand injuries, that's normally people who are doing a bit more, how I put it, specialized technical works. Surgeons, we have finger, hand issues, on, off. Yeah, so it's varied, but the largest number is lower back pain and its variations of problems that it comes with.
Yeah, the different people will probably have different levels of back pains. So I'm just curious, do surgeons present with a lot of hand related issues? I'm just because they're mostly using their hands and what have you, and probably if you don't have the right equipment and what have you, it may bring strain to their hands. So do you see a lot of that in that particular cadre, or they don't even seek medical advice? Maybe, I don't know.
Which card again? Sorry.
Surgeons. I'm curious to see if they have a lot of hand-related injuries.
We don't see very many surgeons, but we do see a couple. One or two come in, and yes, mostly finger, wrist. But then the usual still, they'll still come in with lower back pain or cervical, because it depends also on the angles. At time, you may have to do a surgery in an awkward position, so your shoulder into your neck may hurt, but the fingers is normally due to continuous work using particular motions of the fingers. So we do see that as well.
Yeah, and I think it's actually under, probably they don't have a lot of health seeking behaviors. Most doctors don't anyway. So maybe it's something that we can advocate for people to actually come in if they're having, before it progresses to advanced levels. A lot of people are asking regarding OSHE. Sorry, we've been using abbreviations. So OSHE basically means Occupational Safety, Health and Environment. It's usually a committee within a hospital, especially if you're like ISO certified. You basically must have an OSHE committee that overlooks now the occupational safety in terms of health and environment. So the committee is tasked to do many things, amongst which is just to make sure that you don't have things that can bring harm to either your clients or yourself in the workforce. I think that's a wrap, unless you guys have any addition in what OSHA means. However, in one of the any audience is asking, how does ethnicity affect anthropometry? Gerald, I can see you you would want to answer this question.
Ethnicity may affect anthropometry. Remember, as I mentioned, when they built Kenyatta, the builders were from the Netherlands, I believe. Average height of a man in Netherlands about 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". So there are women, a short woman in Netherlands or Germany should be about 5'8", 5'9". So these are not short people, okay? And that's the ethnicity. They're from a particular area of the world, and that's their height. Remember, we have Sudanese who, an average height of a Sudanese is about 6'3", okay? So that's the anthropometry, is simply those normal measurements. And that's why you get, for example, the anthropometry of Germany when they're building a Mercedes car is a C-Class can fit even a 6'5" person. Not very comfortably, but they can fit in. But a Toyota won't be able to fit a 6'5" person, but a Mercedes would. Why? The anthropometry of those two ethnical groups in those countries are different, and it's the largest clientele. So ethnicity does affect, simply because your genes, you're not very tall, you're not very thin, or you're not very wide. So those are affected by where you come from, or basically, let me put it as your genetic or ethnical background. So it does affect, yes.
Thank you. I can see you quoted Sudan, so I'm assuming you get a lot of clientele from that particular ethnic tribe. I'm just curious, what are the patterns in Kenya? Is there a pattern in Kenya in terms of our ethnicity? Like a particular ethnic group would have a particular problem, or something unique to our ethnic groups?
Now things are changing. So It may have been true 10, 15 years ago, but things are changing. Remember, we've moved from being, how do I put it? Our work being based on our ethnic and tribal patterns and comforts to them being more global. Our culture is no longer Luya, Kisii, Luo, or Kamba, but rather Kenyan. Remember, for example, people from my area would carry water on their heads. Okay, so anything heavy would be carried on their heads. So they would have different problems in comparison to people from the central province who would carry the same weight on their backs. Okay, and that's simply because the cultures are a bit different. But now remember, at this moment, people do not follow those cultures. So back at home, we have wheelbarrows. People no longer carry things on their heads. They do, but not very common. So it's less common to have people coming in with particular forms of neck pain because of constant pressure on their head onto their necks, and less people coming from the central area with back pain and flat backs because of how they carry their heavy loads. So it was true a decade, two ago, but now it's changing. What we're getting now is more the millennials having neck pain and numbness in their hands simply because they're on their phones, neck bent forward, looking at their phones and doing a treatment. I mean, and working on their phones. So yes, if we're looking at it from that point, it will be quite true. Millennials will not have that problem. Secretaries will have a problem with their necks because of posture in front of a computer if it's not well put. But in terms of ethnicity, it's changing simply because we are not following the cultures we used to follow 10, 15 years ago in how we used to work.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting, the fact that you mentioned the millennials. I read somewhere Kenya apparently has the highest number of people using accessing the internet through the mobile phone. It's even more than Nigerians, and they're like so much more than us. So I was just wondering, does anything eye related also fit in the prescription of ergonomics? Because I mean, we spend most of our time on the screen. Is it something that is being looked at from an ergonomic point of perspective?
Can I answer that, Daktari? This would be preempting our next session, because our next session will be dealing now with the specific injuries, and we have classified them as per the human body and the injuries that accompany. So it is there, as you ask. Eye related, yes.
Okay, sawa. Thank you. So at least we would know what is coming next. So somebody's just making a comment. It's important to make it obligatory for new hospitals to be endorsed by ergonomists before licensing. So somebody is also asking, what is the difference between ergonomics and occupational therapy? What's the difference between ergonomics and occupational therapy? Over to you.
Ergonomics, as we said, and as you can still look at, if you look at whatever is being presented, it's simply fitting the workplace or the work environment or the work itself to the person, to the worker, okay? And that's ergonomics. Occupational therapists are people who, they're rehab specialists, like physio. The difference is their work is bringing you back to your occupation. So for example, if you had an accident and you could, and your hand was damaged, they would get you back to be able to write. That's a very easy example, okay? And just to add on what someone had said, the best advocate for ergonomics in any institution, for example, in KNH, would be people from the rehab department, because it's our area, especially the musculoskeletal injuries, that's our area. My area will majorly be the MSDs, the musculoskeletal disorders. Okay, the occupational therapist will be more towards the work and getting you to be able to work properly in your environment as well. Okay, so they can be very good advocates for ergonomics. They can work, when you work very well with them in terms of getting the environment better, because they will tell us, oh, the occupation demands this. We will say the body demands this. Then working together, we can get a very good fit for the worker.
Thank you, Gerald. So most of the concern, and okay, I'll just read out most of the notes. Somebody is saying, like Stella Kubasu, she's saying, thank you for the great presentation, very enlightening. I'm a dentist. A proper ergonomic design is necessary to prevent repetitive strain injuries in all occupations. In dentistry, poor posture, poor flexibility, improper positioning, and lack of taking breaks is leading to work-related injuries, especially back and wrist. Encouraging workers to get used to moving up and down, even for 5 minutes. Another person is commenting, are eating habits and exposure taken into consideration since we've been having consistent low vitamin D levels for workers and the public due to working indoor for long periods? This is a question. Any of the panelists would like to address that? If the eating habits or sun exposure taken into consideration, considering most of us, we're just working indoors, we go home, we're indoors. So I'm not sure, but apparently there's a lot of low vitamin D levels noted by the commenter. Is that into consideration?
Thank you. I think there's someone, Stella has just said something about workers being encouraged to walk around. You don't sit for so long in one position. You are supposed to stand, walk out, come back, do some few exercises. That would be our demonstration in the other session. So I think that would be important because you just walk out for some minutes during lunch hour, you are able to get your vitamin D rather than just sitting throughout indoor. It is not encouraged to sit for long. That's when you get these musculoskeletal injuries we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we've done a proper introduction. Personally, I was not very familiar with what ergonomics was about, but now I think I can be a champion of economics. So maybe a brief, because it was a very short presentation, maybe a brief introduction of what happens in the physiotherapy unit in KNH. It's actually located in the ground floor. I remember the first time I walked in, I was quite impressed with our physiotherapy department. There was a gym that they have sessions every lunchtime, if I'm not wrong. So maybe a brief overview of what the what type of physio specialists we have and what services we offer within the hospital, because we are out of time.
I think I'll talk about my area, the outpatient. That's where I am. My colleague and boss, probably Emily, will talk about the ward areas. In physiotherapy, outpatient clinic, we see, as the name goes, outpatient, for people who come from home to be treated at the department. People working down here, we have majorly two specialities working in outpatient now. One group is called orthopedic manual therapists, who mostly deal with musculoskeletal issues. Then we have another group, an all-female group who deal with women's health, or rather I would say pelvic rehabilitation, pelvic floor rehabilitation.
So if you have women health issues from prolapse to RVF, basically all women health issues, urinary incontinence and the likes, we have experts who deal with that. The musculoskeletal, we have them. We have people who have done OMT, that's orthopedic manual therapy, but they have a bias towards sports. So we have people who have a bias more towards football, I think one. I have a bias towards other sports like rugby. Then we also have neuro specialists, but then they're not working in the outpatient at the moment. They're mostly in the ward setting. So neuro rehabilitation specialists work in the ward. In our setting now, we don't have one in outpatient. Yes, I think Emily probably can talk about the other areas. Or before she does that, the area is quite big, so coming in is very easy for the staff. All you need is get a consult. If you have a problem, get a consult through staff clinic. Come in, we'll book you. We try to be efficient as possible. We see our patients within the week. So if you come on a Monday, if you're busy, we'll ensure we book you between Tuesday and Wednesday and see what the problem is, see how we can sort it out. Yes, the lunch hour classes are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I cover one of the classes. I have other colleagues who cover the classes as well. Mostly I deal with strength, coordination, and a bit of cardio. So as a physio, I have a bias towards those things. My other colleagues work more cardio, maybe more biased towards cardio, more biased towards strength. But that's how we are. We are physios, so we'll be looking at particular things as we go through those gym sessions. So all are welcome. Charges are 300 per session for non-staff. For the staff, it's a bit lower. I think it has to be confirmed. If you come in, it can be confirmed to you. I think it's about 150 per session for staff. Yes, unless there's a question about our outpatient department.
Thanks, Gerald. That was quite informative. And I think I'll encourage a lot of people to pass by. It was actually a very enlightening experience for me. I actually met the ladies who are doing the female therapies, the ones for fistula and what have you, and it was quite good. Even I believe you have a section for children as well. And yeah, so I'll just encourage people to go there and have a view for themselves.
Yes, definitely. Sorry, we do have a children's section. Yes, yes. And we also do a bit of chest physical therapy. So if someone has a chest issue and they're referred for physio, we do cover that as well. Victor, the one who presented for a while before he left the outpatient to go work in the ward, was also doing our cardiac rehabilitation. So a patient who had maybe a cardiac injury previously could come in and do cardiac rehab at our department. Easy, progressive. Cardiac and even pulmonary rehabilitation can be done in our department. So yes,
yeah,
you can
thank
come
you.
in, all are welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So as the last question, somebody was asking, sorry, as Osha, do you fast procurement of furniture in KNH, which directly affects economics? I think that's really a management question. Maybe we can answer that in another forum. What's the recovery rate observed for neuromuscular degenerative disease in KNH setup? Anybody wants to answer that? What's the recovery rate observed for neuromuscular degenerative disease in KNH setup? I don't know. Are you asking in form of CVA and what have you? I'm not really sure, but maybe one of the panelists would want to take up that question.
Daktari, I think that's a very wide question.
Yeah.
As much as we might be having statistics in our department, neuromuscular is quite wide. So maybe I'm not so sure. I've not been in the
Narrow
outpatient
into
department. Gerald
could you answer? Yeah, could you answer probably
position.
with the most
I think
common?
it's quite wide.
Could you answer with probably the most common neuromuscular? I'm thinking this person is more inclined on CVA, cerebrovascular accidents.
CVA. Gerald is in the outpatient department. Maybe he's the one in the best position to answer this. So I don't know. I don't know how many patients he sees and they recover with CVA.
Gerald. Okay. So Gerald, would you like to answer, or we can postpone it for another session?
I can give a quick tidbit. Neuromuscular problems are, as you say, very wide, and the recovery rates are just as wide. Remember, when you have a neuro case, as you know, most doctors do not want to go do neuro simply because they say it's not, how do I put it? The recovery rates are not good. So it's very hard to say what the recovery rate would be. It depends, even if you talk about a CVA, it depends on how massive was it, what's the motivation of the person. So it's a very wide topic. I have people who come in, they had a CVA and they're out in a week because it was mild, and there are others who are stuck with us for life. So it's very difficult to say the recovery rate, but rather what we can talk about is their quality of life and how functional can they be depending on the exact parameters of the issue. So it's not a cut-paste answer like I'd say about an ACL tear, that's a ligament tear, or you understand?
Yeah, I
Neuro
understand quite perfectly.
Very, yes, there is very
it's customized. It's dependent.
Timeline.
Yeah, it's dependent on the patient and how much they give and how severe the injury was. So you can't give a specific timeline. So yes. I think we can end the session today. Mine is to encourage people to log in tomorrow. Tomorrow is World Cancer Day. Would have in collaboration with many other partners. Maybe I don't know how we can circulate that information, but there'll be a webinar tomorrow at 9 to 11 with the ministry and many other partners, NCI and what have you, on world cancer. On our platform, we'd have experiences in managing cancer in terms of COVID and even without COVID. We'd have different panelists, basically guys from Kenyatta, guys from KU, guys from different MTRH and different private hospitals. So I will encourage you to log in and to ask questions, and it will teach you a lot about what's happening in the cancer platform. So thank you very much for logging in. We really appreciate you logging in, and we'll try and address the issues of CPD points. So we'll see you. Goodbye. It's not actually cervical cancer, it's just cancer in general. We'll probably edit that before the end of the day. Thank you very much for joining in, and have a lovely afternoon. Goodbye. Thank you, panelists, for yeah.
Thanks.
Hey.